again. You've moved over to daylight savings time, summertime?
We will this weekend, yes. I think that morning is when it changes, Sunday morning. When does yours change?
Not yet. Usually a few more weeks before Passover they do it, usually, I think. You moved over to daylight savings time,
Oop, we're getting
summertime?
some feedback here. Okay.
So if we want to do it 12 o'clock your time, is that the right time for you? You think for the people who will be listening,
Yes, that would be
joining the meeting on Sunday?
8 o'clock your time. We could possibly do this 1:11 my time. Would that be
I
better
don't
for you?
mind doing it at 8. That's fine.
You know, if it was getting too late at 8.
We've got no kids at home usually. We just had some of the grandchildren just leave now because our son-in-law's his father takes the brothers, all his sons, to ski once a year. So he's been away. He's getting back tomorrow before Shabbat. So she moved in with us with uh, three or four of the granddaughters. So that was nice. They just left this evening because he's coming back. Yeah, so 8 o'clock is fine for me. Let's try it at 8.
Okay.
All right,
Can
we'll
you hear
announce
me
it.
okay, Rabbi? I just got an error message on my microphone. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine.
Let me just double check the recording audio. Just give me 1 second. Test, 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 test. Yes. Okay. Okay. Just it flashed an error message for the microphone, but Motorhead, can you hear me okay? He's in the chat already. It'll take him 10 seconds to see it. So uh, I can appreciate what we were talking about earlier with your son. If someone had told me ahead of time, hey, would you like to join the combat engineers and go out in the middle of a minefield and deactivate mines, I would have probably said no. But that's where I ended up in the combat engineers, which
Well, one of our older sons, the actually he's adopted, um, and he's now 30, just actually celebrated his 35th birthday, and he's in combat engineers, and he was in Gaza, he was in Lebanon, and they helped clear out tunnels and deactivate booby traps, and they did some hairy work. He didn't want to get to a unit like that, but he made the most of it, and he felt he's doing something very important.
yeah, I mean, it is important work. That, like you said, somebody's got to do it, and it can be very dangerous. It's necessary. Well, Rabbi, we're on. Uh, Good to see you. Welcome back. Welcome everybody back.
Hello to everyone. Shalom. Peace to you all. Peace of Hashem. May you all be safe and enjoying better weather. Winter, I think, is nearly over. Maybe another month or so. Either way, stay safe. Here in Israel, thank God, things seem to be winding down. We still don't have the hostages back, so we're all praying hard. And of course, we have a lot of wounded and families that lost loved ones. So we have to deal with that. It's going to take years, if not a whole generation. But let's hope for more. We're supposed to be optimistic, call it messianic or optimistic. Interesting point. Um, in Israel, it's an insult to call somebody in certain circles, oh, you're messianic. Now, it's not the same messianic adjective that you hear in the United States, I think, when you're talking about messianic Christians or whatever that might mean. In Israel also, or even as well as in the United States, if you speak to Jews about messianic Jews, they're talking about Jews that somehow have come to believe in Jesus as the Messiah, maybe even worse than that. But in Hebrew, just generally, when somebody says, "Oh, you're a messianic," it's, as I said, it's quite often it's an insult, saying that you're unrealistic, that you believe that some magical person, individual is going to come and save the world, and you're being irrational in what you're trying to do. So, for instance, if you believe that Israel can maintain or retain control and dominion over, let's say, Judea and Samaria, some people call it the West Bank, which right now is a disputed territory, at least in international courts or governments. We don't think there's anything to, it's ours. It's biblical. It was given to us by God. There are Jewish historical sites there that are just under the surface. Some of them already have been excavated. And then there are Israelis that say, what are you, crazy? If we don't give them back, we don't relinquish our control, we don't withdraw from them, then we're going to have an eternal war with the Muslim world, with the Arab world. So how do you think we can survive? And then they'll call you a Messianic, especially if you are a believer and an observant Jew. So you're being unrealistic. Well, actually, all these years, we've been saying to them, you're being unrealistic. I've had people when they've challenged me on this, what's my solution? I said, I don't have a solution other than to believe in God, stay strong, and wait it out. You're the one I think is being unrealistic. I recently heard somebody say that the Arabs have been saying it all along. And again, the Arabs, I'm generalizing. But if you look at the leadership of all Arab countries and the leadership of the Palestinian Arabs, they've said the whole time they don't want any Israeli state, any Jewish state. They don't want Jews here, even in a Muslim state or a Palestinian state. They've been saying it all along since the beginning of the Zionist movement, then throughout the history of any time, any kind of some kind of compromise, a deal was offered to them, whether by the British, whether by the United Nations partition plan, whether who was it? I forget which president it was, Clinton, whoever it was. They keep saying it the whole time. And certain people say, no, they don't mean it. They don't mean it. You have to offer them better economics, a better prospect for living with their families, and you'll see they'll make the compromise. They keep saying, no, we won't. We want all the Arabs that fled in 47, 48. We want them to come back to pre-67 Israel borders, into Tel Aviv, Jaffa, into near the Israeli airport, into Haifa. They keep saying it. They haven't changed their tune, but they're Israelis and Europeans and Americans, call them progressives, call them liberals, call them Jew haters, whatever what motivates them. They keep saying, no, the Arabs don't really mean it. Ask the Arabs, yeah, we do mean it. Look what's being said in all these protests, these demonstrations. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. River to the sea means no Israel. They're saying it. And many of them are, pardon me, white-skinned. I'm talking about not Arabs, not Muslims. And they're saying it. So why don't we listen? So thank God I think President Trump is listening. I think he's got his cabinet listening, whether it's the ambassador to the UN, the Secretary of State and Defense Minister. They listen. They hear what the Arabs are saying. And so I might still be considered a Messianic, and I'm not, and Rabbi Cherki recently said, of course I am. What does it mean to believe in the Messiah? It means I believe that God, Hashem, the one creator, has a plan. The plan, and there are different options to the plan depending on what we, the human beings, and it's particularly the nation of Israel, what we do. But God has a plan, and we are optimists because we trust in Hashem. We have faith in Hashem, emunah, that God will help us as long as we make the effort to make this whole world a better place. Now, if I didn't believe in God, and I wasn't so-called, this is Rabbi Cherki's idea or view, if I wasn't Messianic, I would think this world is going quickly down the drain, and there's no hope for mankind because more nations and terrorists are going to get their hands on nuclear weapons. We're destroying the environment. So why would I think, if there's no God above that is directing things somewhat when he chooses to, we don't understand God's plan, why would I think the world's going to get any better? Eventually we'll destroy this world. Anybody who doesn't believe that must be Messianic. If we believe, yes, the world can survive, it's going to get better because mankind will come together as we speak about here in the world, in the Noahide World Center, where we talk about the Brit Olam. That's what we call ourselves in Hebrew, which means a world covenant, a universal covenant for all of mankind. We believe it can and it will happen, but we need more good people like all yourselves, believers in God, want to be God's helpers, God's partners, then things will happen. So we should proudly say, yes, I believe in a messianic time. When is it going to come? I don't know. Should we go crazy and do stupid or insane things? No. But based on that, we are going to make plans and we are going to keep working towards it. How? We start with ourselves. We start with the inner circle of ourselves, making ourselves better people, better humans, more humane. Then our families, we teach our kids properly, and hope, if we set the right example, they'll follow, that will serve as their role models. It could be parents, grandparents, older brothers and sisters, uncles and aunts, and just neighbors. We can show the way and influence. It's not, a magical thing. It's piece by piece, step by step. But the more of us, our power, and not power to control, but power to change things for everyone, to make it good for everybody. The more numbers, our numbers will multiply in much greater. So, God willing, we should get more people working with us, believing in this, studying this, and practicing it. Not just belief, but practicing how to be better human beings, better according to the Torah, according to the Noahide instructions, as we study here each week. So I'm going to Frank, our placekeeper and our host. Thank you, Frank. Can you please remind us which paragraph are we on page 5 in the book, Brit Shalom?
Well, chapter 5, but page 63 in the book, item number 26.
26. Okay, let me try to share it on the screen. Remember, this chapter 5, where I think we might finish it this week, refers to the command. Sorry, Frank?
Oh, I'd just say maybe not, because the proper conduct on this one is
quite long. Okay.
pages long. So
okay. This chapter, Rabbi Cherki, who authored this book, he's the head of our organization here in the Noahide World Center, located in Jerusalem. He took each one of the 7 commandments, or the 7 instructions, Noahide laws, and chapter 5 is about life, the value of life, the gift of life from God, and therefore that's for every human being in the world. And not only for human beings, it's also for animals, but human beings are on a different level of animals. And we have to cherish our own lives and the lives of others, treat them with respect. And therefore, of course, wanton killing, immoral killing is considered murder and punishable, and a severe violation of God's laws on earth for humanity. So, but it's not only murder. If life is precious, then you have to treat people as such. If we do believe, as the story is described metaphorically, if you want, in the beginning of the book of Genesis, the beginning of the Torah, every human being was created in the image of God. God breathed into Adam, and we believe it follows all the descendants of Adam and Eve, the breath of God. God breathed into our nostrils. God resuscitated or began life, human life, with the breath of godliness, and placed a soul inside of us. A soul is a part of God, the limitless creator. So that, if you think about that, that's like, whoa. There's God, first of all, knows who I am, breathed into me some kind of godliness, which we can't really define, but we know we're much more than just flesh and blood. And, atoms and molecules and electrons and neutrons, we're much more than just tissue, flesh and blood. We have a soul that God placed inside of us. And somehow that soul is part of God and will return to God after long lives, we hope. Not only me, it's my spouse, my children, my parents, my brothers, my sisters, my neighbors. If we could really stay aware of that, just think of that. Everybody has a piece of God in them. And we have to sort of find a way on earth, not just in a world of souls, of spirituality. We have to find a world to bring more these souls communicating and interacting with each other. So let's get right into it now. You said 26, proper conduct, Frank?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Page 63, chapter 5, page 63, item number 26.
Okay, so in each chapter, Rabbi Cherki hasn't only included what you have to do, what is obligatory. He includes also what we should be doing, even if you're not actually compelled to do it. He calls it proper conduct. Proper conduct. If you want, it's in between the lines. There are the basic laws, and then there's how we apply it to our lives and how far we should take it in our moral behavior, our ethical behavior. So 26, there are those who prohibit Noahides from castrating males, whether human or animal. God gave every mammal, not only every living thing, a way to reproduce, to multiply, and make more of it in this world. And we, as human beings who have seichel, we have intelligence, we should not take away this gift. Obviously, certain times it might be a medical reason or something, but generally it goes against the grain. Is it actually prohibited? Well, as you see, Rabbi Cherki says there are some who, he talks about some, he's talking about those who prohibit. He's talking about certain authorities or scholars over the years have thought that, yes, everybody, every human being, forget about Noahides. When we talk about Noahides, we're talking about what every human being should be doing. Castrating males, whether human or animal, is wrong. But this view is not accepted by all. In other words, not everybody accepts. So, as far as I understand, if you want to plow a field with a healthy bull, there's no way you're going to be able to do it. I've never tried, but from my understanding, a bull, if he hasn't been castrated, is going to be mean, is going to be aggressive and mean, and you won't get any work done. Same possible with other burdens of beasts of burden. So then it might be acceptable. Nevertheless, this prohibition is worthy of consideration. As you're destroying, possibly causing suffering to animals, which is forbidden for Noahides. Actually, it is one of the 7 of the Noahide rules, not to cause suffering to animals, because we have to recognize that the animals don't, so to speak, they're not ours to do whatever we want with them. God gave us permission to take advantage of them, no, that's not the right phrase, to use them for our needs, whether it's for plowing, whether it's for food, when it's necessary, if you're using it for something, but not to torture them. And we spoke about it last week, I believe, causing unnecessary suffering to animals is forbidden because they are God's creatures.
Rabbi, wouldn't this also apply? It's a big thing here at least in the U.S. I don't know about other places of the world, but when they castrate males, oftentimes they serve up the testicles at the restaurant. Mountain oysters, they're sometimes called. I know that's sheep. Sheep testicles are pretty big sellers. Not so much the bull testicles because they're so big, but there's a market for it, and it's served up in restaurants. But wouldn't that be eating the limb of a living animal? I mean,
if the animal is still alive and then eating it,
yes.
You know what? I don't know. It's something that, again, so I've never even thought about that. It's one thing if you've slaughtered the animal and then you're going to eat every part of it, every edible part of it. That's one thing. Here it's you're cutting off the testicles for possibly another reason. Like I said, to be able to work with the animal, and so you might as well not throw that away. You know what? I'll try to figure out, maybe ask Rabbi Cherki about it for next week. I don't want to say something that I'm not sure about. Okay, 27. Commonly accepted ethical standards obligate one person to save another who is in danger. In other words, you're standing on the side of a river and somebody is fallen into the river and being swept away, whatever the circumstances are. We all understand, you don't need the Torah even to tell us this, that you are obligated to save that person or try to save the person. Throwing a rope in, creating a human chain, a life preserver, something. This would be as long as you are not putting yourself in danger. Even, again, call it universal ethic standards. If my life, I don't have to put my life in jeopardy to save somebody else. There are heroes that do it. We wouldn't tell you not to do that, but trying to make sure that you're not going to both be goners. I think last week we discussed this, the case of the hypothetical situation where 2 people are walking in the desert. They only have one bottle of water. It belongs to one of them. And if they share that water, they're both going to die. If one of them drinks it, the owner of the bottle, he will probably survive and his companion won't. He could give it to his companion, but then he's going to die. Sharing it might seem foolish because then you're both going to die. So the rule is that you don't have to share it. You might feel, listen, I can't bear to see the guy next to me, dying of thirst. Maybe you'll gift it to him and you'll say, you know what, I'm ready to be judged by God. I'm willing to give it up. But going back to this, but it is acceptable, 27, that you shouldn't, what is it called? The Good Samaritan law. I think it was passed in certain states in the United States. You can't just stand by and let somebody die if you could have saved them without risking your life. You have a moral obligation, universally accepted, I think, in the United States and probably most Western democracies. And of course, godliness. Save that life. That life is precious. Even if you have no idea who that person is, even if it's inconvenient. Again, not putting your life in danger, but inconvenient. You should definitely do that. 28. Let me move it up. It is appropriate for a Noahide who killed someone by accident to exile himself to another city or country. In the Torah, there's an implicit set of laws, and it's spoken about in a few different places in the 5 books of Moses, in what we call the Torah. If a person, by mistake, accidentally, you took precautions, and yet it happened. In other words, it's what is the so it's less even than involuntary manslaughter. Involuntary manslaughter might be you were fighting and you punched him and he fell down and hit his head. That's not necessarily the case we're talking about. We're talking about you were on a ladder and somebody walked under your ladder and your tool fell from your hand and hit the guy and in the head, and the person died. Again, and not only that, it might have been on your property, not in the street where maybe you're not allowed to, work with a ladder with heavy tools. It's in your place, and that person, bad luck, walked onto your ladder and you accidentally killed that person. First of all, of course, it's tragic. Killing anybody, loss of human life is terrible. So in the Torah, it's clear, referring to, it seems, instructing the Jews, if this happens, what is, if you want, the punishment? Well, the person, it's not murder, because the person, even though it's not actually murder or legal murder, because the person didn't intend to kill the victim, the departed, the deceased. You were working on your roof, putting shingles up or whatever. It could be another example could be you're working on your roof with shingles or whatever you're doing, putting up a new antenna or whatever it is. You're sealing your roof, and an abnormal wind blows. A heavy wind, a gust of wind blows, and again, some of the tiles go flying and hit somebody on the sidewalk, in the public place. You didn't intend it. You're allowed to work on your roof. You couldn't have foreseen that there's going to be a gust of wind, an irregular gust of wind. So that's called murdering by accident. And the interesting thing in the Torah, it's called murder, but they say it's murder by accident. So they want you to know that you are somewhat at fault, because you're doing work. It's your responsibility, even this unforeseen, call it an act of God or of nature. But you're not obviously liable for a death penalty because you didn't intend to do it and you took precautions. So in a situation like that, there are 2 problems. One of them is you need atonement. You need atonement. Second one is the other family, the family of the victim might, if they see you walking around each day in their neighborhood, that could boil their blood. And they may take things into their own hands. They may take the law into their own hands. Therefore, the solution was, it's written in the Torah, that there were cities, designated cities in the Holy Land, in Israel, up and down the country, that were for people that needed to flee, to go into exile from their hometown because they had killed somebody by mistake. Now, it wasn't a jail. It was a normal city, except for you were not allowed out of the city limits if you were one of these, call it criminals. You have to stay there, possibly for your whole life. Your family comes with you, right? You take your family with you. So again, it's not a jail. You take your family with you. The only dispensation or way out is if the high priest that served in the Beit HaMikdash in the temple in Jerusalem, if he died. If he died before you die, then it's an amnesty for all these unintentional or sort of criminals in inverted brackets. And the idea was this way: the family of the victim doesn't have to see you walking free each day, and that might cause, of course, unrest. Not only that, it's atonement for you. It's atonement for the person that because it's not a convenient thing to leave your city, your neighbors and your neighborhood, and you might have to change jobs, and you have to go live somewhere else. You have to make a change. But so here, Rabbi Cherki in 28, he's referring that we can understand that it might be appropriate. In other words, again, are you obligated? No. If you ever killed someone by accident, let's say you got off, it wasn't intentional, and even the court said it really wasn't your fault. You were driving on the road according to the speed limit. You were not on your phone. You were not texting on your phone. Somebody jumped between two cars and you ran them over. God forbid. And I hope none of you have ever had this experience. So what is the law? I think the civil law of the land is, well, it wasn't your fault. As long as the police do their investigation, maybe the court has to rule. All right, you go back home. But Rabbi Cherki is saying possibly in a situation like that, you should want to, for atonement, and maybe it will also help you overcome your guilt, your sense of guilt. So you go to somewhere else, maybe nobody knows you, it's inconvenient, possibly, it might not be so inconvenient. Again, it's appropriate, Rabbi Cherki writes. It's an interesting notion. At a time when city of refuge laws are in effect for Jews, which they are not these days, we need the temple, we need the tribes back, and so on. A resident alien, somebody who's come to live amongst us in Israel, not Jewish, who kills accidentally, exiles himself to such a city. Sorry. So when there are cities of refuge in Israel, in the Holy Land, because we have the Beis HaMikdash and we've set up these cities, there were supposed to be at least three of these cities for every tribe. Wait, am I 3 or 6? Again, sorry, it's a bit late for me. I've had a long day. But so what Rabbi Cherki has written here, and again, we can see the footnotes. He didn't invent these rules, 172 and 173. If somebody, a non-Jew, was living in Israel, a Noahide was living in Israel, and God forbid it happens to them, then they will go to one of these cities, and they will be with other people like themselves, some of them Jews, some of them not, for atonement and to stay out of the way of the family. Let's just see what those sources were. 172, 173, the foot of the page. All right, so, he's 172 is for the Jews. 173, he brings it from Maimonides. Yeah, you can see Mishnah Torah is the code of law, the monumental codex of Jewish law written by Maimonides about 900 years ago. And Rotzeach is the Hebrew word for a murderer, and it's chapter 5, paragraph 3. So that's where Rabbi Cherki must have found it, that why a Noahide should feel that they should find a way of atoning for not their negligence, but lack of absolute foresight and to protect human life. Again, emphasizing every human life is precious. 29. No one should injure himself or bring themselves or others into dangerous situations in which there is no benefit, as occurs when someone drives at excessive speeds. So let's say you're not worried about the police or a radar, a trap of the police, driving at, I'm not talking a bit over the speed limit, which also obviously increases the danger, the risks, but somebody who is trying out their Lamborghini or their new muscle car, whatever it is, and they're flying, you're putting yourself at risk and others around you. So that's forbidden, or at least it's definitely not the right conduct of somebody who treasures life and treasures life as a gift from God. The question is extreme sports, right? And that's a question. Are they allowed? What benefit other than the adrenaline, what benefit are we getting out of it? It's a gray area, I would say. It's not that clear, what I am and what I'm not, but we can understand that it should definitely be carefully considered. I don't know if I've told this story, but I think it's a good story, even if you have heard it already. In memory of her parents, remember my wife's parents My wife decided she's going to raise money for a wish ambulance. I don't know if they exist in the United States. The concept started by an ambulance driver in Holland, in the Netherlands. It's a fully kitted out, fully equipped ambulance that is um, kept. It's maintained for people who want, so to speak, one last wish. People who are invalids, can't get out, or dying, and for instance, they want to see the sea one more time. They want to go to a concert. They want to go to a ball game to see their home team again. There was a case in England, in the United Kingdom, where we served for a few years. It's a crazy situation. You know, they have healthcare, national healthcare, but depending where you live, they have different sort of benefits. So there was a case of a married couple, an elderly couple. He was living in one place in a home, and she was living in another place, because that's the only way they could get each one individually, respectively, the care that they needed. Just, I'm not inventing this. This is, you know, for me, for just outrageous. How doesn't the state deal with this? But they couldn't see each other. They can't be in a car. It wasn't even say, well, let him take a taxi. This is for people that need an ambulance to get to a place. So that's just an example, or examples. So these wish ambulances, they have voluntary medical crews, medical staff, including a driver, and they do it for free. They donate their time, and they will take this person who wants to go see the sea one more time, wants to go, like I said, whatever their last wish is. They submit their request. They need a release from the doctor of the home, or their family, or their private doctor, and then the people try to give them their last wish. It's a beautiful thing. It's one of the things that you've probably all become familiar with the term a mitzvah. It's a great act of kindness. So my wife had heard about this, how her father, blessed, may his memory be blessed, was a very nice man, a very decent fellow, took care of his family, but he was ill most of his life. But he got on with things. He had different problems from a young age. He went to work and he dealt with it, raised a family, and loved by everybody that knew him. Towards the end, he was hospitalized in a hospice. And he wasn't doing well. And we had a wedding planned for one of our sons. And we weren't sure. We were hoping that he'd be able to make it to the wedding. We realized, as the wedding was getting closer, that he was bedridden. There was no way we could get him into a taxi, or somebody would go pick him up and bring him. The only way to get him to the hospital, from the hospice to the wedding, was in a stretcher, in a hospital bed, or in an ambulance bed. One of the doctors in the hospital mentioned this to my wife. Have you heard of this? She had never heard about it. He gave her the number. She called. They said, yeah, we can do it. It took some convincing of my father-in-law. He was going to come in a bed looking very bad, not getting dressed up, of course. And we were very pleased when he heard about this ambulance, this wish ambulance. He said yes. And every time we see it, we get, our throats we choke in our throats. He's there, as we were walking in with our son to the chuppah, to the canopy, and we walked by his bed where he was put on the aisle there. And, he blessed our son and smiled. And we went to the chuppah with him, with our son. My father-in-law saw the whole wedding. And then we immediately after the ceremony, we immediately went up to him again, hugged and kissed him, and he went back to his hospice, and he survived another week. My wife thought this is something she wants to do in memory of her parents. I've made this a very long tale, but I think it is a beautiful notion. And if you ever look for something you'd like to do, maybe, it's not cheap. You have to raise the money for the ambulance and then the maintenance of the ambulance. My wife decided she's going to raise the ambulance. We're talking about 100,000 pounds, which was about $130,000. So my wife started raising the money. But somebody came to her and said, you get to really get a good bump in your contributions. You need the wow factor. My wife said, what does that mean? You have to do something that will get out, that you are married to a rabbi, right? A woman at that time, my wife must have been 50, yeah, 50 years old. You have to do something almost crazy that people will take notice, and they'll know you did this to raise the money, to bring awareness. So she said, like what? So he said, like jumping out of an airplane, right? Parachuting. I don't think it was free fall, but yeah, a little bit maybe. Parachuting. My wife, fearless. I don't know if I would have done it so quickly. Um, I actually would like to do it, but she said, yeah, that's a good thing. So anyway, she found out where she can do it. She's obviously tethered to an instructor, to a professional. She wanted to be and had to be a woman. She had to find a woman for modesty reasons. She had to find a woman who is willing to do this. You know, there's a fee to be paid to the plane, to the photographer. The guy jumps out with you, and she found it all, and she did it. It hit the Jewish newspapers in London and in the UK, and I think some other newspapers, local newspapers, and that definitely gave her the big bump. She loved it. We have the clip, the video clip, or whatever. I'm a bit jealous. Uh, but so here's a question: was she right? Because there's a danger, of jumping out of an airplane, even with a parachute and professional. There's still a danger, but you might say it's an acceptable danger these days. It's a sport that people are doing, and there are very rarely in countries like, I guess, England, the United States, very rarely are there accidents. I'm not talking about the daredevils and something like that. So she did it. And I think we did ask a rabbi about it. She could have asked me, but I felt this is above my pay grade. Now I'm jumping ahead about a year later. The fellow, we were at let's call it a lecture of a renowned Jewish rabbi, a renowned speaker who's a rabbi from the United States. He was coming out to the United Kingdom, to London, to speak in front of thousands of people. 1,000 people here. He went to different synagogues, different conferences, and he spoke. Before the conference, we were invited to come to it. Just the person who organized it was the fellow who told my wife, or who advised my wife, you have to have the wow factor. Before the lecture started, he introduced us. He got us front row seats, and he introduced us to some other fellow who was at least put on airs of quite a religious Jew. I got a bad vibe from the beginning, as he wasn't overly friendly. Our acquaintance said, "This is Rabbi and Rebbitzin Kaplan. They're the Rabbi and Rebbitzin of my community." And this guy said, "Oh, okay, sure." And then, trying to impress him, our mutual friend said, "She's the Rebbitzin. She's the woman that jumped out of the plane to raise money for the wish ambulance." The guy made a face as if, "What a fool! It's something you shouldn't do." Right? Like mishuga. You all probably know the term, it's mishigas, it's mishuga. It's crazy to do that. I thought that was rude of him, right? We didn't ask your opinion. You're being judgmental. And anyway, I'm fine. I've learned not to get offended, But before the lecture started, the renowned rabbi came up to our mutual friend, who was one of the sponsors, and we were introduced to this rabbi. And realized everybody, including that rude fellow, we all came to hear this rabbi speak. And there are about 2,000 people in the hall. Our mutual acquaintance says to the Rabbi Krohn, "Rabbi Krohn, this is the woman, this is the rabbi's wife who jumped out of the plane to raise money for tzedakah, for charity." The rabbi said, "I'm so jealous of you." He spoke to my wife, Frida. He said, "I'm so jealous of you. I would love to jump out of a plane. I've done it a few times already, but my wife won't let me do it anymore. And that you did it for tzedakah, for God's work, that's truly fantastic." Now, I was very pleasantly surprised at his reaction, but I'm sort of out of the corner of my eye looking at the guy who had been rude to us about this. He hears everything the rabbi is saying. He came to hear this renowned rabbi and listen to what the rabbi is saying. And he's done it for sport. So anyway, it is a gray area. And the wish ambulance was donated. It's already done many good deeds. There are a few of them in Israel, and that was the first one in the United Kingdom. They had never had one like that. My wife raised the money, and on it she put, "This is a gift to all people." It's not only for the Jews. It's a gift for all people from the Jewish community to fulfill people's wishes. And so it was a good thing. And my mother-in-law, who passed since then, also was very pleased. She felt this was something my late father-in-law, would have appreciated. All right. Hope you enjoyed that story. Hope it wasn't too long. Let's get back to the words of Rabbi Cherki. So going back to it, 29, no one should injure himself or bring himself or others into dangerous situations. You're not allowed to risk your life because life is precious. God gave you the gift of life. Why are you putting it at risk in which there is no benefit, as occurs when someone drives at excessive speeds just for the thrill, for the adrenaline? Let's do maybe one more. A guardrail, sort of, a fence or a guardrail. If you have a roof that you're going to use the roof because it's flat, you're going to use it for a balcony, for sunning yourself, or even for whatever you're doing with it, a guardrail should be built around the roof to avoid danger. Now, the Torah obligates Jews, at least. It's a mitzvah. It's one of the 613 mitzvot. And there are actually 2 mitzvot involved. Build a guardrail around your roof, around your balcony. If you have a staircase that is steep, you have to put up a guardrail. It's protecting life. And the Torah says, and don't bring blood into your house. In other words, if you make a house that's dangerous, you're tempting fate if you want. You're belittling the value or placing little value on life. So you have to go around your house and see, if there are low windowsills, then there should be, and it's second or third floor, it's dangerous. You got to put keep some kind of what would you call it, a harness on the windows that they can't open up fully so that a child, God forbid, or anybody can't fall out the window, or put bars on the windows. It's a Torah obligation. Now you might say, what do I need the Torah to tell me of this or command me this? Right? It's common sense. Well, but there are a lot of things that we say, I'll do it later on. And actually, when a Jew builds a new house or buys a house, and he puts up a rail, maybe where there wasn't one beforehand, whether it's because it's a new house or the previous owners didn't take heed, there's actually a blessing we say. Thank you, God, for commanding us to do this. But this is all part of appreciating life. And so too, I'm continuing, preventive measures should be adopted concerning any potentially dangerous situation, whether it's smoke alarms, smoke detectors. If you have a pool in your house. I was a rabbi of a community in Caesarea, Israel, which is on the sea. I think you'll find it Caesarea Maritima. It was a Roman city, and then it became, before that it was a Roman city. Herod built an amazing port there. You can look it up, and I was the rabbi of the community there for 15 years. And many of the homes there have pools. The weather invites it. The plots of land that the houses are built on are spacious enough. You have the sea for those who want it. But when people used to come and rent houses there or move in, when I used to meet up with them, I said, do you have a pool in the garden? And they would say yes or no. And I say, if you do, listen to what I'm saying to you. Pardon me for butting in. But having a pool in your garden is like having a wild, vicious dog. No offense to the dogs, a wild animal in your garden. That means the same way if you knew there was a wild dog there outside, you would not let your children out into the garden without being supervised because there's a danger there. So a pool is just as dangerous. Children are drawn to the pools. The water is mesmerizing. They know it's a great thing. It's fun. And they don't understand the dangers just by walking next to the pool. So treat it that means you lock the doors to the garden. The children are not allowed into the garden without a grown-up present. And a grown-up is responsible. Now, they know that's your job. If the children are out, that's your job. If you building your own pool, I tell people, make a fence. A fence that children cannot climb over. Where we live in Tkoa, we decided to build a pool, a small pool in our garden. Again, the weather is generally mild here. It's heated. So we also run a bed and breakfast, and we invite, people come to our heated pool. And we looked into various precautions, a good fence that a child cannot climb over. There's no foothold for him. Not only that, we have a covering of the pool. When nobody's in the pool is covered. That even if a child steps onto that cover, it doesn't sink because it's harnessed at both sides. You probably can look. Anyway, the idea is you have a dangerous situation in your house. Don't belittle it. Don't think, well, I'll teach my kids. Foresee it. Your children's lives, of course, are precious, let alone your neighbors and so on. Take precautions because, and it makes sense anyway, ethically, but no, God commands us. So this is part of the proper conduct, you could call it. So maybe if you think it's not a great danger, well, that's okay. That's your business. But know that as a believer, as you good folk are, you believe in God, and God is the creator. God loves us. God gave us life, but said, take care of the gift that I gave you because I love you so much. And God also expects us to do things with the gift that God gave us. So with that, go around, check things that could fly off your roofs, look for any holes, electric wires, anything like that, and drive carefully. So Frank, do you have anything you'd like to add, or anybody's asked any
Oh,
questions?
well, some of what you're talking about there, not just speeding, but a big issue in the US is road rage. Road rage because somebody cuts you off. They come up really fast beside of you, get in front of you and hit the
Yep.
brakes or whatever the case may be. Yeah, it's dangerous, but you're literally just taking your foot off the gas and pushing the brake. It's nothing to get upset over. Take a breath, let the crazy go on by you. It's not worth dying over. It's not worth killing over. It's not worth raising your hand to someone else over. It's just people are risk takers anyway, and all you can do is just kind of get out of their way. Uh, you
Be the
mentioned
bigger man,
be the
or the
bigger
bigger
person.
the bigger human being. That person's a fool, or it's possible it was a mistake. And even if you think it wasn't, be the bigger person. Let alone don't put yourself at risk. There are crazy people out there.
I try to think positive and think, well, maybe you know, maybe they're rushing to get to a family member. Maybe they got a little bathroom really bad. Who
Okay.
knows? Well, maybe some reason why they would do that, but I'll just back off and let them go on. It's not worth my time but the swimming pool thing here in Tennessee, they have a law for a wave alarm. So you have this little box you put along the edge of your pool, and when the water gets disturbed and it creates waves, it immediately sends signal in the house where you have an alarm and let you know that somebody's in your pool. Uh,
That's a clever thing.
yeah, yeah. And we have at least in our area t two drownings a year from kids falling into ponds because there's a lot of farms in this area and they have a lot of ponds and kids wander off from the yard. They end up falling in
Tragic.
the
Tragic.
pond and they don't find them for days. And it's terrible.
Oh my.
So,
So
uh,
sad.
yep, yep. Uh, but thank you, Rabbi, for your time. Thanks everyone for joining us.
All right,
We
Frank, you're
are
going to let
on
everyone know
for
about Sunday?
we are on for Sunday. Is that correct? Yeah.
Right, a Noahide gathering where I'm going to moderate it, but I want to meet you all because I don't see your faces except for Frank. But besides that, I think it hopefully will help us band together so that we won't feel that we're all isolated, that we can share problems, share questions, share answers, share stories, and get to know each other better. And everyone is invited to join. I ask you only to have a cup of coffee, tea, a beer, glass of wine, anything just to let your hair down, so to speak, put your feet up, and let's just enjoy a conversation. It's not a class, it's just a conversation. So, Frank, it's going to be 11 o'clock 12 o'clock your time.
Still 12. It'll just be 8 o'clock your time. And for South Africa, so my friend Lee, he usually it'll be an hour later for him as well because he's the same time as you. So
Okay. And again, you don't have to turn on your cameras if you don't want to. I'd appreciate if you did. And use any nickname that you want. You don't have to identify yourself if you're worried about that. And Frank is not going to be recording it.
correct, correct.
So God bless you all. Look forward to seeing you all on Sunday.
Will not be recorded, will not be on social media. So it's just a private meeting. So thank you,
Thank
Rabbi.
you,
Thanks
Frank, for
again.
arranging this.
Thank you for your time. Shalom, shalom.
Have a good weekend. Bye.